All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. We are here at Sebring with the Porsche Club. As you can see, there's a bunch of Porsches. Man, beautiful, beautiful morning. Look, I'm even wearing pants. Finally wearing pants and a sweater in Florida. Nice chilly morning. It's gonna be in the upper 80s, you know what I mean? But hey, I'll take it. You know, 60s in the morning in Florida, man. It's beautiful, beautiful sunrise. All right, so I'm here for the weekend. I may split this into two videos, I'm not sure. I think plan for today is I really wanna do more of a review on the tires. Okay, so I'm going to start the day on the 4Ss, on the stock tires. I'm also curious as to how the car is going to behave as far as braking, as far as like traction control and stuff like that. The stock tires are stout, you know, but one of my rear tires does have a little bit of a chunking, a little bit of a thread that disintegrated kind of thing. So I'm not going to be able to run them all day. I may do 1 or 2 sessions. I don't know. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. And then we'll throw the Vtors. Okay, so the Vtors, like, you know, same ones from the last video, 345, 2521, and the 285 fronts. So stockish kind of size. Another beautiful morning at Sebring, again in the low 60s. Beautiful, beautiful. Yesterday we had a wonderful day, but the true story here is how amazing the stock tires are. It's a 300 thread wear, run flat, very, very stiff. But the car really, really likes these tires. Traction control kicks in a little bit less with these tires in all modes that I tried. I didn't go to race 2 on these, but I did do sport and race 1. And the Vtors, I don't know if it's just that I'm not pushing them enough or the setup is not right, but they don't really feel amazing. They almost feel like these, you know. Braking is better for sure, okay? There was more sketchy moments on the stock tires than on these, but even on these I did blow a few braking zones yesterday. So I don't know, we'll see. I want to give them a fair shot because I ran the 220 on these like at this time of the day, like early in the morning. The track was cold, you know, the tires were cold, the car was cold. Obviously making the most power that it's going to make because, you know, it was the coolest time of the day. So I want to give the Vitours a fair shot, try them in the morning and just see if, you know, maybe they don't feel amazing, but, you know, you just have to kind of push through it. I think that the Vitour is a really good tire for a 200 thread wear. I would definitely put it up there with the Nankang CRS. And you know, it's great that they come in stockish sizes. They are coming out with a 275 30/20, which would be exactly the stock, you know, front size. And I think that this car is so tuned to so many electronics and stuff like that, that if you ran the 275, the stock size 275, I think that the traction control and all that stuff would be happier. I believe now that the PDR shows a little bit lower mile an hour than the dash or the GPS because of the front tire. It's a little bit taller, so it's about 1% off or so. Now, once you put the car on race 2, then really all those issues kind of just go away. The car just works much better. It doesn't feel like the car is fighting you through turns. It doesn't feel like it's taking power, or at least a whole lot of power through the turns. It still, you know, it still does interfere a little bit, but way, way, way less than in sport. Sport is super, super intrusive with these tires, more so than the stock tires, and I believe it's just because of the slightly taller front tire. And then every stage that you go up, so then race 1 is a little bit less intrusive, and then race 2, it's really kind of where the money is. So yeah, I'm still thinking that the fastest times in this car is going to be with really everything turned off, or with the stock tires, and that's really why the fastest cars that I've seen, at least locally on these, is really with the stock Cup 2R tire. Which I may eventually try out, but for $2,000 or $2,500 plus install, really for a tire that only lasts about a day, day and a half, I don't know, that's a hard swallow. This is a really good compromise. You know, they last, they don't overheat, they don't get greasy, you know, especially in a heavy car. You know, that's really important. And, you know, again, stockier size. And if you go with the 275, I think there's going to be money for just a lapping tire. Now, for me, honestly, the star of the show is the stock tires. For 300 thread wear, to run a 220 at Sebring, and honestly, I was kind of pussyfooting around. I was still not really pushing the car. I think in ideal conditions, and, you know, really pushing the car in pushing it in race 2, I think these can dip into the teens, you know. Definitely in my hands that can do a 19, because I did almost a 19. So I can definitely do a 19. I'm confident of that. And in the hands of a more confident driver, probably lower, maybe 18s, maybe 17s. And that's bonkers on a 300 thread wear tire that's run flat and stuff like that. But the car really, really likes that. You know, you can really tell that the GM did the tuning around everything is like hyper tuned to the stock kind of setup. And the super stiff sidewall and stuff like that really adds to the feel of the car. So yeah, you know, if you just want to run the stock 4S tires, man, yeah, you're gonna miss out in some time, but for a lapping tire, you know, that lasts, that you can drive to the track, that you can do rain, and all that kind of stuff, man, this is incredible performance out of these stock tires. Excellent job, GM. I'm blown away. To put it into perspective, in the C7, I think that the best I got on 200 thread wear was a 219. I don't remember exactly what 219, but you know, 219 on 200 thread wear. The fact that these tires can get close to that or even match it, incredible. The Vtors, as far as the feel goes and stuff like that, you know, versus the run flats, they don't feel that far off, you know. Like the Nankang CRS has a really soft sidewall. It is a very vague type tire, okay? You kind of don't really know what the tire is doing. You just kind of have to trust it that it has a lot of grip. This car being softer and stuff like that, I do kind of get that same sense, but there's really not that much of a change going from the stock tire to these tires in this particular car. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing as far as the feel goes and stuff like that. But braking performance is definitely better on these tires. These tires definitely have more grip. Now, keep that in mind. I have not pushed these tires to or past the limit of their grip. I did get to a couple moments that was sketchy, and I just kind of blew past the braking zone. But it wasn't like, okay, completely lost control, I drifted through turn 1 or anything like that. No, I didn't get to that point yet. So I'm sure these tires have more to give, okay? But again, from where I'm standing right now, I think the true start of this review is the stock tires. They're amazing, you know. These are good. Those are amazing for what they are. So yeah, the Vitour P1s is a solid tire, especially if you want to stay in stock or stockish size. You know, you want to keep the nannies on, you want to keep the electronics happy. Solid lapping tire. Not going to be as good as a Cup 2R. Okay, I know guys have gone 214s and 215s at Sebring with the Cup 2R, and this car, you know, no aero and stuff like that. So yeah, these are not going to get there for sure. But, you know, look, the fastest I ever went on a 200 thread wear on the C7 was, you know, a 219. And I think that with more practice and stuff like that, I can probably dip this into maybe 18. I think I could definitely get it down to 18. Maybe stretch it out into a 17. Who knows? So yeah, definitely a solid tire. Again, for me, the start of the show is the stock 4S tires. What an amazing performance for a street tire. Incredible. All right, guys. So on the next episode, we're going to continue lapping the C8Z. We're going to go back to Homestead Miami Speedway. Hopefully we get redemption and we have a better time than the last time we were there. We're going to continue to run the Vtors, you know, so we'll see how they wear. We'll continue to run the GP40s. I think my brakes, my stock rotors, you can't see, but they're starting to craze. We'll see how long they last. I do have a spare Paragon set, and, you know, we'll continue to, you know, we're going to do more videos and stuff like that. I have a lot of people asking me C7Z versus C8Z for track car and stuff like that, and I think I'm going to make a separate video on that. Once I have, you know, I want to do a couple more track days to really get a feel for this car. So far, very impressed. It took me many years to get down into the teens and the C8. And, you know, my third outing in this car, you know, boom, there I am. So, yeah, super impressed. All right, guys, thank you for watching as always, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.